is SMNI News Channel. Truth that matters.
In the headlines, we begin with high-stakes diplomacy as nuclear negotiations reached a critical juncture. Iranian Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi called the latest indirect talks with the U.S. the most intense yet. Meanwhile, the USS Gerald R. Ford stopped in Crete, sparking fears the island could be a military threat or military target. While tensions rise in the Mediterranean, Washington is shifting the narrative on Cuba. Secretary of State Marco Rubio blamed decades of mismanagement for the island's economic collapse, dismissing claims that the U.S. embargo is to blame. Beyond the Caribbean, North Korea's leader signals willingness to re-engage with Washington. Kim Jong-un said he can get along with President Trump during a massive military parade in Pyongyang, making a rare appearance with his daughter to showcase the arsenal. From diplomacy to direct conflict, military tensions erupt along the Pakistan-Afghanistan border. Both nations exchanged heavy fire, accusing each other of sparking the deadly cross-border engagements. As border tensions flare in South Asia, China imposes new restrictions on Japan. Beijing added 20 Japanese entities to its export control list, citing military buildup concerns, but claiming regular trade remains unaffected. Back home, a heated exchange between Malacanang and former Congressman Mike Defensor sparks controversy. The palace called him Ador Mawanay 2.0 after new witnesses emerged in a multi-billion peso bribery scandal. Defensor fired back, urging the administration to focus on corruption, not distractions. And finally, a Hollywood family rift goes public on big screen. Maddox Jolie dropped Pitt from his mother's latest film credits following his sister Shiloh in distancing from their father Brad Pitt. I'm Carlo de la Peña. Newsline World starts now. Military tensions between Pakistan and Afghanistan have escalated into direct kinetic engagements along the border, with both nations trading accusations over who initiated the hostilities. This report.
The border between Pakistan and Afghanistan has turned into a front line following a series of deadly exchanges that began earlier this week. While Pakistan claims it is responding to unprovoked aggression, Kabul maintains its actions are retaliatory strikes against violations of its sovereignty. On February 22nd, Pakistan conducted air operations inside Afghan territory, targeting what it described as militant camps responsible for terror attacks within its borders. Islamabad maintains that these strikes were a necessary act of self-defense against groups operating from Afghan soil. However, the Taliban government in Kabul presents a different sequence of events. Afghan authorities claim the escalation was triggered by Pakistan's air incursions into the Nangarhar and Paktia provinces, which they condemned as a violation of their national sovereignty. By February 26, the conflict intensified with reported air operations over Kandahar and Kabul. The Taliban maintains that its forces only struck Pakistani border posts in direct retaliation for the initial air attacks. As both sides exchange heavy fire, neutral observers note that independent verification of the first shot remains unavailable, while Pakistan points to militant activity and border fire as the catalyst. Afghanistan cites the violation of its airspace as the primary provocation. The broader escalation is fueled by months of rising friction over the use of Afghan territory by militant groups like the TTP and frequent Pakistani strikes that Kabul claims hit civilian areas. Reporting for Newsline World, Almar Forsualo, SMNI News.
China has added 20 Japanese entities to its export control list, citing concerns over Japan's military buildup and what it calls growing nuclear ambitions, while assuring that regular trade will not be affected. Faye Agustin has the news.
China says the move is aimed at safeguarding national security. Speaking in Beijing, He Yongqian, a spokesperson for China's Ministry of Commerce, described the decision as legitimate, reasonable, and lawful. She accused Japan of accelerating its remilitarization, including efforts to ease arms export restrictions, develop offensive military capabilities, and revisit its free non-nuclear principles.
近期，日本扩军备武步伐加速，推动取消武器出口限制，发展进攻性军事力量，谋求修改无核三原则，反映出日本加速推进再军事化的危险动向和拥核企图，对地区和世界和平构成威胁。中国作为负责任大国，一贯积极履行防扩散国际义务。中方于2月24日将日本有关实体列入出口管制管控名单和关注名单，目的是制止日本再军事化和拥核企图，完全正当、合理、合法。
He also spoke on the upcoming sixth round of Sino-US trade talks, highlighting China's commitment to ongoing dialogue.
中美双方通过中美经贸磋商机制，在各层级持续保持沟通。中方愿与美方一道，共同落实好、维护好两国元首釜山会晤和2月4日通话共识，通过平等协商，妥善管控分歧，拓展务实合作，维护中美经贸关系健康、稳定、可持续发展，更好造福两国，惠及世界。关于磋商的具体消息，请你持续关注。
China says these moves signal a push for responsible economic engagement while safeguarding national security and advancing international cooperation. This has been Faye Agustin, your global citizen correspondent, reporting for Newsline World.
With trade and innovation at the center of discussions, German Chancellor Friedrich Merz wrapped up meetings in Hangzhou, one of China's leading tech hubs, as Berlin seeks to balance economic ties with strategic concerns. Joy Tabanao tells us more.
German Chancellor Friedrich Merz concluded his official visit to China on Friday with a stop in Hangzhou, the country's leading technology hub, ahead of a scheduled trip to Washington. During his visit, Merz met with local officials and business leaders, focusing on trade, innovation, and economic cooperation between Germany and China. Hangzhou, home to several major technology firms, served as a key backdrop for discussions on digital transformation, green technology, and investment opportunities. The trip comes amid ongoing efforts by Berlin to balance economic ties with Beijing while addressing concerns over market access, supply chains, and geopolitical tensions. Merz is expected to travel to Washington next, where talks are likely to center on transatlantic relations, security cooperation, and coordinated economic policy. German officials described the China visit as part of a broader strategy to strengthen global partnerships while safeguarding national and European interest. Joy Tabanao, your citizen correspondent, reporting for Newsline World.
Up next, Iranian Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi called the latest indirect talks with the U.S. the most intense yet. Meanwhile, the USS Gerald R. Ford stopped in Crete, sparking fears the island could be a military target. Secretary of State Marco Rubio blamed decades of mismanagement for the island's economic collapse, dismissing claims that the U.S. embargo is to blame. And North Korean leader Kim Jong-un said he can get along with President Trump during a massive military parade in Pyongyang, making a rare appearance with his daughter to showcase the arsenal. More news when Newsline World returns.
Madalas ka bang napapasobra sa pag-scroll sa phone mo?
kahit puro masasamang balita ang nakikita mo. Isipin mo ito, nakahiga ka na sa kama, nagche-check lang ng phone bago matulog. Tapos, hindi mo na malayan, ilang oras ka na palang nagbabasa at nanonood ng mga balita tungkol sa digmaan, sakuna, politika, at lahat ng masasamang nangyayari sa mundo. Nakakaramdam ka na ng kaba at pagod, pero tuloy mo pa rin ang scroll mo. Ang tawag dyan ay doom scrolling. Ito ang habit ng paulit-ulit na pagtingin sa mga negatibo o nakakadepress na content tulad ng digmaan, krimen o problema sa mundo. Nakaka-stress pero hindi mo pa rin mapigilan. Ayon sa isang pag-aaral ng Texas Tech University, ang sobrang konsumo ng masasamang balita ay nauugnay sa pagtaas ng stress, anxiety at pisikal na sintomas gaya ng pagkapagod at sakit ng ulo. Ayon naman sa Harvard Health, ang doom scrolling ay nagpapataas ng fight or flight hormones tulad ng cortisol at adrenaline na nakakapagpabigat ng isip at katawan. Nakakaapekto ito sa iyong mood, tulog at maging sa mental at physical health mo. At kapag naman puro memes at random na content ang pinapanood mo ng sunod-sunod hanggang sa mawalan ka na ng gana na mag-isip at gumawa ng iba pang gawain, ang tawag naman dyan ay brain rot. Sa Gen Z at tinatawag na internet culture, ang brain rot ay overconsumption o sobrang tagal na panonood ng paulit-ulit, mababaw, magulo o walang saysay na content online hanggang sa parang manhid na ang utak mo. Kapag nasobrahan, syempre, nakakasama. Nawawalan ka na ng focus, nawawala ang motivation, hirap mag-isip ng malalim, parang lutang o foggy ang utak. Masaya sa simula, pero kapag sobra, napapagod ang isip mo. Nahihirapang mag-concentrate at parang lutang. Mas delikado pa ito sa mga bata dahil ang utak nila ay nasa proseso pa ng pag-develop. Kaya mas malakas ang epekto ng doom scrolling at brain rot sa kanila. Maaaring makaapekto sa pag-aaral, pag-iisip at pakikitungo sa iba. Ang higit sa 4 na oras ng screen time araw-araw sa mga kabataan ay konektado sa 35 to 88% na mas mataas na posibilidad ng depresyon, anxiety at stress. Base ito sa isang malawakang pag-aaral sa Brazil. Kaya, maging balanse. Magpahinga sa screen, magbasa, makipagkwentuhan, magdasal, maging present lagi. Alagaan ang iyong isipan. Kung anong itinatanim sa isipan mo, yun ang lalago.
Every day begins with a choice: to stay down or to rise and chase the dream. For athletes, success is not built overnight. It is shaped in silence long before the crowd arrives.
When you become an athlete in any sport events like boxing, any kind of gymnastics or any kind of triathlon, ganon. You are a runner, you are a marathoner, you are a boxer, you are an Olympic athlete. There's a lot of restrictions compared to a regular person who is not involved in any kind of kind of sports.
Restrictions are not punishment. They are preparation.
For the athlete, it's nothing. It's their lifestyle. For the regular jando outside looking at you, parang naawa sila eh. Yung pagkain mo, puro healthy. It needs a lot of discipline for an athlete in a competition.
The same is true in the spiritual life. The way is not wide. It is not easy. It is narrow.
So, Jesus Christ also mentioned that in a very vivid statement when he said, the way to life is very narrow and very strict and very small.
89 kilograms, please.
What the world calls restriction, the faithful call obedience.
For us, there is no restrictions. That is so restricted enough that we cannot do it. And when it becomes our lifestyle, it's nothing. It's regular for us. Regular for us to be clean-minded, regular for us to be orderly, regular for us to be straightforward. Obedience, commitment, loyalty, dedication, repented in the sight of the Father.
Because this life is a race.
Are we in this life in a competition? Yes, very much. Because Paul said that also. They that run in a race run all, but one receives the prize.
Not everyone who runs wins. Only those who endure.
In order for you to be in a race, you have to be disciplined. So the kingdom nation's citizenship is a disciplined citizenship.
Run the race. Choose the narrow way. Live the disciplined life. Because the prize is eternal.
Isang pindot lang, pwede kang maka-jackpot. Mukhang masaya at easy money lang. Sa murang halaga, pwede ka na tumaya sa online gambling at e-casino apps. Mayroong sabong, slot machines, mahjong, poker at iba pa. Kailangan mo lang ng smartphone, e-wallet at internet. Pero ang aliw na ito, unti-unting nagiging bitag para sa mga Pilipino. Lalo na kung ang paborito mong artista o influencer ang mukha ng app. Mas madaling makaengganyo, diba? Parang safe naman kasi may kilalang mukha. Pero sa likod ng ngiti, sugal pa rin ang itinutulak. At syempre, mas madali ring itago ang pagkalulong sa bisyong ito. Walang pisikal na kasino o pasugalan, walang kaharap, walang accountability, kaya't mas lumalala ang adiksyon. Dagdag pa rito, maraming online gambling apps at walang regulasyon. Sa likod ng mga makukulay na interface at papremyo, nakatago ang problemang bumabalot ngayon sa bansa. Ang pagkalulong ng maraming Pilipino sa online gambling. Pwede maglaro kahit saan, kahit kailan, kahit sino, bata man o matanda, pwedeng malulong. Ayon sa mga eksperto, ang pagkakalulong sa online gambling ay nagdudulot ng matinding stress at anxiety, pagkakabaon sa utang, pagkawasak ng pamilya, pagkawala ng tiwala sa sarili. At tulad ng ibang bisyo, may mga senyales ito tulad ng hindi makapagpigil kahit walang pera, palihim na tumataya, pagpapabaya sa trabaho, pamilya o sarili. Sa bawat taya, may mga taong tunay na kumikita, mga malalaking negosyante at investors na negosyo ang bisyo ng masa. Para sa kanila, perang pumapasok lang ito. Pero para sa ordinaryong Pilipino, kabuhayan at relasyon ang nauubos. At ang masakit, tila matagal itong nahayaan. Hindi ito naging prioridad ng mga nakaupo sa taas hanggang sa sobrang lumala at halos naapektuhan na ang buong komunidad. Ngayon, sa dami ng nalulong at sa laki ng pinsalang naidulot, saka palalong umugong ang mga panukalang batas para higpitan ng online gambling, gaya ng pagbabawal sa paggamit ng e-wallets para tumaya, pagtaas ng minimum bet, mas mahigpit na identity verification, pag-block ng mga illegal na gambling sites, at bawasan o ipagbawal ang mga ads na target ang kabataan. Maaari itong magmukhang laro lang, pero sa katotohanan, isa itong sugal sa kinabukasan. Ang kita na dapat sa mga pangunahing pangangailangan o ipon na uubos sa sugal. At sa mundo ng online gambling, mas madali kang matalo kaysa manalo. Huwag hayaang sugal ang magdikta sa iyong buhay. Isang paalala mula sa SMNI.
Sa kabila ng mga mas modernong kaalaman at teknolohiya, nananatiling matindi ang banta ng HIV sa Pilipinas. Pero gaano nga ba kalala ang sitwasyon? Ang HIV o Human Immunodeficiency Virus
ay isang sakit na sumisira sa immune system ng katawan. Ngunit tandaan, hindi ito nakukuha sa simpleng pakikisalamuha. Hindi mo agad mararamdaman, pero unti-unti nitong pinapahina ang katawan. At kapag hindi naagapan, humahantong ito sa AIDS, ang huling yugto na impeksyon, kung saan halos wala ng panlaban ng katawan laban sa sakit. Patuloy na dumadami ang kaso ng sakit na ito sa Pilipinas. Isang nakababahalang pagtaas. Umabot na sa 500% ang itinaas ng HIV cases sa mga kabataang edad 15 hanggang 25. Ayon mismo sa Department of Health, 56 na bagong kaso ang naitatala kada araw sa bansa mula Enero hanggang Marso 2025. At ang pinakamatinding apektado, ang kalalakihan at kabataang Pilipino. Dahil dito, ang Pilipinas na ngayon ang may pinakamataas na bilang ng bagong kaso ng HIV sa buong Western Pacific region. Isang indikasyon ng lumulubahang sitwasyon, kaya nananawagan ng Department of Health gawing opisyal at urgent ang laban sa HIV sa pamamagitan ng isang Public Health Emergency Declaration. Kalalakihan ng pangunahing apektado, 95% ng bagong kaso ay lalaki. Mahigit 1/3 ay kabataang nasa edad 15 hanggang 24. Habang wala pang deklarasyon, patuloy ang DOH sa mga sumusunod na hakbang: HIV testing, libreng gamot, self-test kits, at pakikipagtulungan sa DepEd para sa edukasyon sa mga paaralan. Isinulong rin ng DOH ang online patient appointment system para sa HIV patients. Layunin nitong gawing mas madali at mas personal ang pag-access sa libreng gamutan at konsultasyon. Ayon sa schedule ng pasyente, ang HIV ay hindi tulad ng flu. Hindi ito basta naipapasa sa hangin. Ito ay naipapasa sa pamamagitan ng personal na desisyon. Kailangan din nating pagtuunan ng pansin ang ugali, disiplina, at personal na responsibilidad. Isang paalala mula sa SMNI.
Pasasaan pa ang kalayaan kung ang mga alipin ngayon ay sila din naman mang-aalipin bukas.
Ibigin mo ang iyong bayan ng sunod kay Bathala, sa iyong kapurihan at higit sa lahat sa iyong sarili.
Hindi natin mapapalaya ang ating mga sarili maliban kung sumunong tayo na nagkakaisa sa iisang hangarin.
Ang tunay na makabayan ay ang tumutupad ng pagpapabuti ng kanyang mga kapwa, gaano man kaaba ang kanyang katungkulan. Naway magsilbing paalala ang kanilang mga salita upang lalo nating mahalin at tapat na paglingkuran ang minamahal nating inang bayan.
Children will grow up and bring the joy, the love, the peace, and compassion to the whole world. We only have one planet. We only have one Earth. And I hope that this new generation of children that we have reached out will become millions and billions and bring peace on earth, bring peace to humanity.
Iranian Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi has characterized the latest round of indirect talks with the United States as the most intensive session to date. Meanwhile, the USS Gerald R. Ford makes a strategic stop in Crete. En route to the Middle East, local residents are voicing fears that the island is becoming a target. Fatima Nozil has the details.
The third round of indirect talks concluded in Geneva on Friday with a notably optimistic tone from Tehran. Facilitated by Omani Foreign Minister Badr al-Busaidi and assisted by IAEA Chief Rafael Grossi, the session spanned both morning and evening hours to address technical gridlocks. Araghchi stated that both sides are now moving into detailed expert-level discussions. A technical assessment is scheduled to begin this Monday in Vienna, where experts will work to align technical frameworks with the political demands of both capitals.
امروز میتونم بگم که یکی از جدی‌ترین و طولانی‌ترین و خیلی جدی وارد عناصر یک توافق شدیم، هم در حوزه هسته‌ای و هم در حوزه تحریم‌ها.
Despite the progress, the pressure remains high. A fourth round of negotiations is expected within a week, even as Washington continues to bolster its military presence in the Middle East as a hedge against a potential diplomatic failure. Meanwhile, the world's largest aircraft carrier, the Gerald R. Ford, departed Suda port on Thursday, but its presence has left behind a wave of local resentment. Merchants and business owners in Hanya expressed deep concern that hosting U.S. and NATO assets makes the island a primary target for Iranian retaliation should the Geneva nuclear talks collapse into war.
Δεν πουλιόμαστε για τόσα λίγα, ούτε για περισσότερα, ούτε για τίποτα δεν πουλιόμαστε. Πρέπει να φύγουν, να ξεκουμπιστούν. Η Δημοτική Αρχή έχει φτάσει σε σημείο τόσο έξω από το συναίσθημα του κόσμου, που εσύ πληρώνεις τα σκουπίδια σου και εγώ πιο ακριβά από ό,τι τα πληρώνει η Αμερικάνικη βάση. Δηλαδή εδώ έχουμε καουμπόιδες.
While some in the local administration point to the economic benefits of the base, critics argue that the militarization of one of the Mediterranean's largest ports is short-sighted. As regional tensions simmer, the people of Crete say they are unwilling participants in a conflict that could reach their own shores. Reporting for Newsline World, this has been Fatima Nozil, SMNI News.
U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio has placed the blame for Cuba's spiraling economic crisis squarely on the nation's leadership, dismissing claims that Washington's aggressive embargo is a primary cause. He blames the Cuban government for decades of mismanagement that led the country vulnerable to the current systematic collapse. Paul Montibon has the details.
U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio described the current climate in Cuba as the worst since 1959, arguing that the suffering of the Cuban people is a direct result of decisions made by its government. The remarks come as the island faces a catastrophic energy deficit exacerbated by a U.S. oil blockade that has slashed fuel imports and paralyzed essential services. Despite the pressure, Rubio maintained that a functioning economy would have a private sector capable of weathering such shocks.
If the Cuban economy were a functioning economy, it would have a much larger private sector. And so what's clear is that, and I would say this, that the people of Cuba are suffering today. They've been suffering for a long time. They're suffering now, perhaps more than at any time in recent memory, perhaps in the history since 1959. This is the worst economic climate that Cuba has faced. And it is the authorities there in that government who are responsible for that. They're the ones that have made decisions that have left Cuba vulnerable to the situation they're now in.
Rubio also addressed the deadly incident off the Cuban coast where soldiers killed 4 people aboard a Florida-registered speedboat, while Havana claims the passengers were terrorists who opened fire first. Rubio stated the U.S. is independently verifying the facts before making a determination on a response. Meanwhile, UN humanitarian officials are sounding the alarm. Resident Coordinator Francisco Pichon warned that the U.S. fuel blockade has moved beyond a temporary shortage to a systemic shock that threatens 5 million people with chronic illnesses and disrupts water and food supplies nationwide.
It is a more systemic energy shock that has become the primary humanitarian risk multiplier. As you know, fuel is not just a commodity. In Cuba today, fuel determines whether hospitals can function, whether water reaches households, whether food is distributed, whether medicines are transported, and so on. As the energy shortages continue, the vulnerabilities are rapidly escalating into a more acute humanitarian risks.
While Mexico has offered to send humanitarian oil shipments to Cuba, the UN notes that would require a specific carve-out or exemption from Washington's sanctions. In a contrasting update on regional policy, Rubio highlighted what he called very positive steps toward national reconciliation in Venezuela after U.S. forces captured Nicolas Maduro last month. Reporting for Newsline World, this has been Paul Montebon, SMNI News.
Tensions escalated between Malacanang and former Congressman Mike Defensor following revelations about an alleged next batch of witnesses in a multi-billion peso bribery controversy. The palace branded Defensor as Adormawanay 2.0, but he fired back, urging officials not to divert attention from corruption issues and to maintain professionalism. This report. Palace Press Officer Undersecretary Claire Castro questioned the credibility of former Congressman Mike Defensor after he claimed that another group of former soldiers would soon expose alleged bribery within the government. Castro said statements like these clearly aim to destabilize the administration.
Mike Defensor, the known Wonder Boy. Marami sa kanyang talumpati ang naghihikayat sa ating mga kababayan natanggalin sa pwesto ang ating Pangulo. Alam na natin ang motibo. Mike Defensor again, Ador Mawanay 2.0. Kilala ang salitang mawanay dahil sa pamimilit di umano sa kanya na gumawa ng peking salaysay.
Defensor quickly denied the accusations, insisting he had no involvement whatsoever in the Ador Mawanay controversy and accused the palace of spreading misinformation.
Well, unang sa lahat, yung pag-spin nila ng kwento mali. Bakit mali? Kasi yung Ador Mawanay, ni wala kahit anong issue o involvement ako dyan na mix up nila ay yung udong mahusay. Yan yung, at mismo si Senator Ping Lacson na nagklaro dyan na sa isang press conference, sabi niya hindi, udong mahusay ang pinipilit nilang kwento.
Defensor reminded Castro to exercise caution in her statements, saying Malacanang is not a store where gossip can be casually thrown about.
Si Jose Claire Castro ay spokesperson ng presidente at dapat siguro may pag-iingat sa mga pagsasalita dahil hindi naman to kwentuhang chismisan na marites sa palengke o kaya sa sari-sari store. No, she's speaking for the president and represents Malacanang. Tapos, pangalawa, siyempre dapat yung posturing should be sober, precise, and statesmanlike.
The former lawmaker challenged the palace to address the real issue of corruption instead of attacking his personality.
Ang isyong to ay hindi tungkol sa akin o kay Claire Castro. Ang isyong to ay tungkol sa nakawan. tungkol sa nakawan ng pondo ng bayan, delivery ng bilyong-bilyong pera. 100 beses sinasabi nag-deliver kay Speaker Martin Romualdez at kay Bongbong Marcos.
Defensor urged Malacanang to confront the alleged multi-billion peso misuse of public funds instead of targeting him. He also called on the Ombudsman and Congress to conduct a full and impartial investigation.
Kung talagang seryoso sila dyan sa kampanya ng korupsyon, hindi ba dapat ang gawin natin dyan ay iudyok nila? Ang Blue Ribbon Committee, ang Kongreso, ang Good Government Committee at maging ang Ombudsman na imbestigahan itong kasong to.
Defensor also vowed to continue assisting future batches of whistleblowers who claim to have personal knowledge of the alleged budget syndicate.
Ako tutulungan ko yung mga yan hanggat sa kaya kong tulungan dahil itong mga taong to hindi nakinabang sa nakawan. Ang mga taong to may personal knowledge. Sila yung mismong nag-deliver ng pera. Sila ang humahawak ng perang umiikot at nagdi-deliver.
Meanwhile, the Armed Forces of the Philippines clarified that the individuals presented are no longer under their jurisdiction due to their current service status. The Philippine Navy also stated that based on their records, not all those who surfaced were members of the Marine Corps, and many were either discharged dishonorably or separated from service. Defensor, however, maintained that these clarifications are immaterial, stressing that the alleged multi-billion peso bribery has nothing to do with military operations. For God and my beloved country, the Philippines, this has been Carlo de la Peña, SMNI News. Following his veto of billions of pesos worth of allocations, President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. is now carefully studying a proposed reform to the country's budgeting system. Under the proposed Philippine Budgeting Code, the release of unprogrammed funds will be tightened to prevent potential abuse. Cresilin Catarong reports.
The proposed Philippine Budgeting Code is still in the policy development and consultation stage. According to Presidential Communications Office Undersecretary Claire Castro, the proposed reform is currently under review and will undergo thorough evaluation by the economic team before it is submitted for the President's final approval.
A central policy intention under the proposed reform is to ensure that unprogrammed appropriations are confined to a limited and clearly defined purpose, thereby preventing its use as a broad or discretionary funding mechanism and enforcing fiscal discipline.
Part of the proposed reform includes limiting unprogrammed appropriations so that they will not exceed 5% of the total national budget.
The precise threshold, however, will remain subject to further deliberation and the President's approval in the context of the proposed budgeting code.
It can be recalled that in January, the President vetoed several items under unprogrammed appropriations amounting to nearly 92.5 billion pesos in the 2026 national budget. According to the President, the veto was carried out to ensure that public funds are used solely for clear national interests and are not subject to abuse. Reporting for Newsline World, this has been Cresilin Catarong, SMNI News.
In a triumph for animal welfare, the International Organization for Paws has successfully relocated the first group of animals rescued from the shuttered Lujan Zoo in Buenos Aires. The operation, described as the largest of its kind in Latin America, provides a new lease on life for predators previously kept in substandard conditions. Stella Maris tells us more.
After years of uncertainty following the closure of Lujan Zoo in 2020, 3 of its most vulnerable residents have finally reached their forever homes. Brown bears Gordo and Florencia arrived at the Belitsa Bear Sanctuary in Bulgaria on February 24th, while the tigress Flora was transported to the Felida Big Cat Sanctuary in the Netherlands. Footage shows the moment these animals took their first steps into spacious, natural enclosures, a stark contrast to the restrictive cages of their past. The rescue was particularly critical for Flora the tigress, who underwent surgery for painful ingrown claws that had left her unable to walk for months. The complex mission is part of a massive undertaking for 4PAS, whose experts have evaluated more than 60 big cats at the former zoo site. This relocation marks the beginning of a larger effort to find definitive destinations for dozens of specimens left behind when the facility was shut down by authorities. With specialized medical teams now overseeing their recovery, these animals are finally free from the commercial exploitation that once defined their lives. For conservationists, the success of the mission serves as a landmark victory for wildlife protection across the region. This has been Stella Maris, your citizen correspondent, reporting for Newsline World.
Following his sister's Shiloh's move, Maddox Jolie has dropped Pitt from his surname, appearing in his mother's new film credits as Maddox Jolie. Meanwhile, after his arrest over a Mardi Gras bar fight, Shia LaBeouf has been ordered by a New Orleans judge to return to jail and attend rehab. Stella Maris is back for this showbuzz.
In entertainment news, Angelina Jolie and Brad Pitt's eldest son, Maddox Jolie, has officially dropped his father's last name. The 22-year-old made a change 8 months after his sister Shiloh did the same. The update came to light when Maddox was listed in the end credits of his mother's latest film, Couture, as Maddox Jolie instead of Maddox Jolie Pitt. Maddox is the eldest of Angelina Jolie and Brad Pitt's 6 children. The name change marks a personal decision as he continues to carve out his own path in adulthood. Fans and media alike are watching closely as the Jolie-Pitt family navigates these personal choices. Meanwhile, actor Shia LaBeouf appeared in court Thursday morning in New Orleans following his recent arrest on battery charges. The 39-year-old Fury star faced the New Orleans Criminal District Court, where a judge ruled that LaBeouf must return to jail and also attend a rehabilitation program. LaBeouf's court appearance highlights ongoing legal troubles for the actor, who has faced multiple incidents involving public altercations in recent years. Authorities say he is required to seek rehabilitation to address underlying issues while ensuring accountability for his actions. This has been Stella Maris, your citizen correspondent, bringing you the latest showbuzz.
In sports, England are considering a spin-heavy strategy for their T20 World Cup Super 8 match against New Zealand in Colombo. Meanwhile, top-ranked UConn extended its dominant run Thursday night, cruising past Georgetown to stretch its winning streak and secure another 30-win season. Here's the latest update.
England could recall leg spinner Rehan Ahmed for their T20 World Cup Super 8 match against the New Zealand national cricket team in Colombo, after spin dominated on the same surface earlier this week. 10 of the 15 wickets fell to spin in New Zealand's win over Sri Lanka, prompting England to consider adjusting their bowling attack to suit the conditions. Bowling coach Tim Southee expects a pretty scrappy wicket and said spin is likely to play a major role, although seamers can still have an impact. If selected, Ahmed would likely replace a pace bowler in the 11. Southee also backed captain Jos Buttler despite 4 consecutive single-figure scores, expressing confidence that the experienced opener will bounce back. England have already secured a semi-final place after defeating Pakistan, a strong response following their Ashes disappointment under coach Brendan McCullum. The UConn Huskies women's basketball beat the Georgetown Hoyas women's basketball 84-52 to extend their winning streak to 46 games and improve to 30-0, marking their 57th straight Big East regular season win. Azzi Fudd led away with 24 points and 4 steals in her final regular season home game, scoring 13 in the opening quarter to set the tone. Sarah Strong recorded a double-double with 13 points and 11 rebounds, along with 7 assists, including 11 points in the second quarter, as UConn built a 48-25 halftime lead. Ashlyn Shade added 12 points, Kaylee Heckel chipped in 11, and Blanca Quinones finished with 10 points and 4 steals as the Huskies opened the third quarter with a 13-0 run to put the game out of reach. UConn completed a perfect 15-0 home record this season, the 22nd time in program history they have gone unbeaten at home in the regular season and were presented with the Big East regular season trophy after the game.
Of the Sun. Do what is right. Defend what is right. Die for what is right. And that's all for this edition of Newsline World. For God and my beloved country, the Philippines, I'm Carlo de la Peña. Thank you for watching. Goodbye.
This is SMNI News Channel. Truth that matters.